Hey everyone, tonight we're diving into the harsh, gritty life of a man who literally helped shape the medieval world, the blacksmith. You've probably seen them in films, hammering glowing iron in slow motion with sparks flying dramatically. But the reality of being a medieval blacksmith was nothing like those cinematic training montages. It was dirty, exhausting work that often caused painful blisters, and frankly, it usually sucked. Before we get started, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely appreciate the content here. Also, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always interesting to see who joins us from around the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for some gentle background noise, and let's ease into tonight's story. You were born into a humble, soot-streaked family of medieval blacksmiths. No titles, no land, no crown, just the family forge, calloused hands, and the smell of burnt iron mixed into your earliest memories. From the moment you can walk without stumbling into the fire pit, you're expected to help out. By age 6, you're your father's apprentice, a polite way of saying unpaid assistant with no rights and permanent soot marks on your face. Your toys are the tongs, and your playground is the dirt floor next to a furnace hot enough to burn your eyebrows off. While other kids chase chickens or skip stones, you're learning to survive beside molten metal. Games include guessing how hot something is by touch, swinging a hammer until your arms give out, and holding back tears when you mess up the nails. Again, your father, the blacksmith, is a formidable man, tough, mostly silent, communicating with grunts and the phrase, "hit it harder." His hands are rough like bark, and his scowl is shaped by decades of smoke and dealing with tax collectors. He teaches you everything, how to shape iron, fuel the fire, and keep quiet when a knight criticizes your work. Questions only bring punishment. A flying horseshoe or a week of cold silence. Holidays? Forget them. The forge never rests, and neither do you. Someone always needs a tool sharpened, a blade fixed, or metal reforged. What you're really learning isn't just a trade. It's how to endure pain, resist the heat, and even sleep standing up. By age 10, you smell like iron, swear like an adult, and have arms strong enough to carry heavy water buckets. If your dog hasn't run off from the noise 2 years earlier, this is your life now. Welcome to the family business. Sweat, smoke, and decades of back pain included. If you expected a few carefree years before the hammer fell, think again. Childhood here is more of a suggestion than a reality. The moment you can lift a bucket without falling over, you're drafted. Forget toys and fun. Your playground is a smoky shed full of sharp tools and open flames. One wrong step earns you a painful lesson in how long skin can sizzle before your father notices. Your official title is apprentice, but really it means do every undesirable task and get scolded anyway. You stoke the fire, pump the bellows, sweep the floor, organize tools, and dodge falling horseshoes, all before breakfast. Pay comes as food, nods, and rare grunts of mild approval, which in blacksmith speak means you didn't completely ruin that today. Meanwhile, the other village kids are out in fields, throwing sticks or learning to milk goats. You envy them, even if they smell like manure. Their future jobs might be humble, but at least they don't involve burns and glowing metal. You, on the other hand, are making nails by hand, thousands of bent, twisted, reheated nails to hold together some lord's chicken coop. If you're lucky, your father lets you swing a hammer alone, right after he points out every mistake. Don't say, "I'm tired." That phrase doesn't exist in the forge. Fatigue is weakness, and burnout belongs to candles. You keep swinging, sweating, and holding back tears. To your father, your master, you're no longer a child, but a blacksmith in training, and the training never ends. The forge isn't just your workplace, it's your entire world. It shapes your body, senses, and mind. By your teens, the forge feels like a living beast, hot, smoky, temperamental. You learn its every sound, the wheezing bellows, iron hissing in water, the hammer's clang echoing like a war drum. There's a brutal rhythm to it. and your body moves with that rhythm whether you're awake or drowsy. You stop noticing the heat, not because it's easier, but because you accept it like gravity or taxes. You know which stones are too hot to sit on, which coals burn fastest, and which floor spots will burn your feet. Your skin darkens from smoke, your clothes smell of scorched wool and grease. You own little, but the forge owns you. You forget what silence is. The constant noise is normal. When quiet comes, it feels unsettling, like missing a beat in a song you've known your whole life. Your friends, if you still have any, barely see you anymore. You're probably at the forge. You are not just a blacksmith, you are the forge itself, a living extension of fire and steel. And strangely, part of you starts to love it. Not the burns or blisters, but the moment when the shape is just right. The horseshoe fits perfectly. The blade gleams when metal bends to your will. For a moment, you're not just a soot-covered kid. You're a creator, a crucial gear in the medieval machine. But then the moment passes. Another order arrives. The fire roars. Time to get back to work. By the time your friends are just growing into their teenage bodies, yours feel battered and worn. Their limbs lengthen and strengthen. Yours become stooped, scarred and stiff. Your arms are thick, but not from heroics, more like a teen repeatedly hit by anvils. Your back aches from hauling metal and leaning over the forge. Your knees creak. Your shoulders pop with every hammer strike, which is nearly constant. This becomes your personal soundtrack. Your hands, once fingers, are now iron-tipped claws. Blistered, cracked, and so deeply stained with soot that no river could wash it away. Cuts and burns are daily occurrences. Half your fingernails are blackened or missing. You hold bread as delicately as if it were a fragile hedgehog because every knuckle feels cursed. There's no real recovery. Pull a muscle, keep working, twist your wrist, use the other one. The forge doesn't wait for you to heal. Sleep doesn't come easy either. Your muscles ache, your ears ring from constant clanging, and your arms twitch as if sparring ghosts in dreams. You ache in places you never knew existed, and even your pain has pain. What does your father say? Good, you're learning. Not despite the pain, but because of it. You're being hardened like the iron you shape, forged by heat, pressure, and repetition. But by adulthood, your body feels like it has lived 2 lifetimes and died halfway through both. And the worst? You're only just getting started. Smoke isn't just a nuisance, it's a constant harsh companion. The forge is a choking chamber. Every breath tastes like coal dust, scorched metal, ash, and regret. If you can see clearly more than 6 feet ahead, congratulations, someone forgot to light the fire. There's no chimney, just a hole in the roof that lets smoke in more than it lets it out. No windows, just soot-blackened walls. Your father coughs constantly, and gusts of wind blow ash into your eyes. Your lungs have entered a toxic, long-term relationship with smoke. At first it burns, then it irritates, and eventually it becomes normal. Coughing fits, black mucus, all part of the daily rhythm. Clean air feels strange. Your voice changes, sounding like an old goat farmer who drinks boiling tar. Your breaths are short, your throat feels like a dust storm, yet you keep working, because you must. It's not only smoke from the fire, metal dust from grinding, oil fumes from quenching, sometimes burnt leather or charred wood accidentally dropped into the coals. You've inhaled several poisons before breakfast. Protective gear, a rag tied around your face, sweaty and foul-smelling is the best you get. Take it off and it's harder to breathe, but at least you're not choking on sweat. Long-term effects? Asthma, black lung, early death, all part of the job, but you're focused on finishing that gate hinge before your father notices it's crooked. In this world, air isn't something you breathe to live, but something you endure to keep hammering. You develop a close relationship with your tools based on pain, necessity, and mutual frustration. Your hammer is practically part of your arm. You've named it, cursed it, swung it so often your shoulder clicks like a haunted maraca. Without it, You're just a sweaty man in a smoky hut. The hammer makes you a blacksmith, and also makes you bleed regularly. Then there are your tongs, clumsy, hot, always pinching at the worst moment. You burn your fingertips more often than you pick things up successfully. The iron slips, the grip fails. You yell. Your father tells you to grip harder. You consider tossing them into the fire for teaching them a lesson. Your chisel was once sharp, now it's barely a blade. You use it for shaping, splitting, scraping, and even prying open stuck doors when neighbors lock themselves out. Your tool. Bench is a medieval torture rack, filled with breaks, files, punches, rivet sets. You've been jabbed, crushed, sliced, and pinched by every tool you own. Your fingers have a memory of pain. They flinch at the sight of new tools. Your apron, meant for protection, mostly catches hot metal shards like a smoldering hug. It's more scorched than sewn and stiffens like a corpse every winter. Still, you care for your tools like family. You sharpen and oil them every night because if one breaks, you can't work, earn, or eat. Your tools are your life, but also your tormentors. They whisper, "We help you sue." Mud and entitlement. I know you're busy, they say, but could you just... That phrase haunts you. Yet here's the worst part. You never get thanked. They assume it's your duty, as if you were born to serve. If their hoe works, their door shuts or their shield holds, they simply nod and move on, as if you were the lucky one, honored to fix their rusty bucket at sunset for half a loaf of stale bread. Payment is often unreliable. Sometimes coins, sometimes goods, sometimes empty promises forgotten by the next market day. One man even paid you with a dead chicken. Good for soup, but not for you. You're also the fixer of problems that aren't even yours. Bent gate hinges from careless sitting, broken daggers from drunken fights, strange pieces of iron no one can identify but must be fixed. Yep, still you. When the village praises anyone, it's the knight, the priest, or the miller with the extra fat goat. You're just background noise, a necessity, a tool, not a person. But here's the secret you know. They couldn't last a week without you. Their fields would lie fallow, their homes collapse, their horses limp. And though no songs celebrate you, their whole world quietly holds together by your hands. You might think peace is good news. No raiders, no bandits, no nobles shouting for new swords by sundown. But for you, peace is terrible for business. You may work on plows and hinges, but what really pays the bills is war. When fighting breaks out, everyone needs you. Weapons, armor, arrowheads by the hundreds. Even horseshoes wear down faster from cavalry charges. Your forge blazes hotter. Coins flow in. Exhausted, your belly is full, and debts to the alehouse are temporarily forgotten. Then the war ends. The local lord declares a truce. Knights stop marching. Suddenly your orders dry up. No more swords, no helmets, just a farmer asking to sharpen a sickle, and maybe paying with 3 onions. Sure, you can make household goods like cauldrons, dar handles, cooking spits, but there's little profit in it. Everyone expects you to work like a magician, but pay you like a stable boy. You become negotiator, beggar, and merchant all at once, haggling for decent wages as if your forge is just a stall at market, and don't even think about raising prices. People look at you like you cursed their cow, but you're just hammering metal. They say it as if molten iron shapes itself while humming hymns. You begin to miss the chaos, not the blood, not the burning villages, but the steady stream of orders, the purpose, the rush when knights lined up outside your forge with dented shields and coin purses ready. You mattered. Now you make keys. For locked doors no one locks, patch pots that should have been thrown away, fixed tools so old they belong in museums, not fields. Peace for everyone else means safety and rest. For you, it means worry and hunger. And deep down, though you'd never say it aloud, part of you whispers, wouldn't mind a small skirmish, just a little one, maybe a minor border dispute. Because when swords break, you eat. Some jobs have an end, a clear finish line, a task. Done, rest, applause, or at least a warm bowl of stew. Blacksmithing isn't one of those jobs. Your work is never done. Not today, not tomorrow, not even in your dreams. You fix one thing and three more break. Patch a gate hinge and the cartwheel falls off. Finish a batch of nails and someone demands 10 more but longer this time. And oh, by the way, payment. Waits till harvest. You rise before the sun and sleep long after it slips behind the trees. Even then your mind keeps hammering. You dream of bellows, sparks, and that one customer who still owes you half a dozen eggs and a thank you. Even quick. Jobs never stay quick. A villager arrives with a mangled rake. Just a little fixing, they say. But you know it's 2 hours of reshaping, reheating, hammering, while they ask every 5 minutes, "Is it ready yet?" Just as you think you can finally sit down and drink. Something that isn't lukewarm and smoky. Your apprentice runs in. The friar's ill. You need to shoe the horse. Of course you do, because you're the blacksmith, everyone else's last resort. The forge demands constant attention. The fire won't stoke itself. Tools rust if ignored. Your anvil shifts in summer heat. Your bellows crack in winter cold. Everything is either falling apart or threatening to. Even holidays don't stop the work. Sunday is a day of rest, unless an ox cart breaks on the way to market. Then you're half awake, hammering in your apron, praying the priest doesn't walk by on the Lord's day. You don't keep a to-do list because it implies a point when it'll be finished. There isn't one. Blacksmithing isn't a job. It's a cycle, work, fix, repeat, until your body or your hammer gives out. And the worst part? You kind of love it. You'd think pounding hot iron all day would earn you two things: a good meal and a solid night's sleep. Wrong. In the life of a medieval blacksmith, food and rest aren't guaranteed. They're luxuries, like clean water or polite customers. Let's start with food. You work from dawn to dusk, burning calories like a runaway horse. What do you get? A piece of coarse bread, a bowl of cold pottage that might have yesterday's turnip, and maybe some salted pork on a rare, special day, which isn't often. You eat standing up, one hand clutching tongs, the other shielding your food from forge ash. Meals are rushed, conversations are grunts, and if someone knocks mid-bite because their latch is stuck, guess what? That stew goes cold. You don't. Eat to enjoy, you eat to survive, fuel to hammer out, now sleep, or the cruel imitation of it. When you finally crawl into bed, your hands throb, your back feels like it lost a bar fight, your ears still ring from a day of iron symphonies. Your bed is a straw sack, either too lumpy, too flat, or crawling with mysterious things. Your blanket is a scorched wool sheet smelling faintly of forge smoke, old ale, and regret. Just as your eyes close, your mind recalls unfinished orders, that cracked hinge, or the payment still owed for a wagon wheel 3 weeks ago. Sleep becomes a negotiation. You lie awake, tossing and turning, calculating how long you can delay repairs without someone banging on your door at dawn. Don't forget the midnight surprises: a horse losing a shoe, a storm ripping a door off its hinges, or a noble's sword needing urgent sharpening before a hunt, because obviously you don't need rest. You learn to survive on scraps, stolen bites, half-naps, and stubbornness. In your world, productivity comes before nourishment, deadlines before dozing. Food and sleep aren't breaks, they're intermissions between hammer swings. You eat when you can, sleep when you're allowed, hoping the fire won't die while you dream. There was a time when your hands were soft, once, maybe as a child. Now they're ruined. Fingers have become tools themselves, stiff, swollen, cracked and calloused so much they barely feel anything except pain. You can't hold a quill or lace your boots, but can grip red-hot tongs with the ease of someone burned so often pain lost meaning. Every joint pops when you move. Your knuckles look like they've been mugged by a hammer. Your palms are maps of blisters, old and new, layered like tree rings. Need to tell the season? Check the blister count. More than 5, it's summer. You've lost fingernails more than once. Once you crushed your thumb so badly it turned black for 2 weeks. You didn't stop working, you just switched hands. And grunted louder. Cuts are constant. Chipped edges, files biting you, iron fighting back. Every week something leaks blood. You wrap it in cloth, curse softly, and keep going. Worse are the burns. Some mild reminders iron doesn't forgive, others worse. Sizzled scars telling their own stories. You've branded yourself more times than a cattle farmer, and at this point you're not even mad. Just used to it. Your grip strength is the only thing improved. You can crush walnuts like they owe you money, but dexterity is gone. You drop things, fingers shake when cold. At 30, you have the hands of a 70-year-old knight who lost 3 wars and now plays tavern dice for soup. But despite it all, these hands keep you alive. They shape swords, fix hinges, hold the hammer that holds your reputation. They hurt constantly, but they work. Because in this life, it doesn't matter how broken you are, as long as you can still swing. Let's be honest, you don't smell great. Actually, you haven't smelled clean since you were 5, the moment you became your father's apprentice. Your personal scent shifted permanently toward unwashed ashtray, mixed with burnt bacon and desperation. Welcome to blacksmith life, where no matter how hard you scrub, you smell like fire forever. The forge burns all day and so do you. Smoke seeps into your clothes, hair, skin. Your sweat doesn't smell like sweat anymore. It's smoked meat left out in warm spring. Baths exist in theory, but water is cold and you work 6 days a week, covered in soot, grease, and dust. Before the sun is fully up, so what's the point? You'd be filthy again by breakfast. Your clothes don't help. The same singed tunic and scorched leather apron every day, not truly clean since the last festival, and even then someone spilled ale before noon. Now they cling to you like a protective layer of hardened funk. You try perfume? Forget it. It lasts 10 minutes before the forge devours it. Flowers wilt near you, bread goes stale faster, cats hiss when you pass, and the worst part, people notice. You walk into the tavern, and the crowd parts like the Red Sea. The innkeeper already knows, seat you in the corner by a window. If not from kindness but sheer survival, no one wants to share a bench with the human equivalent of a burnt fence post. Still, you bear it quietly, better a little shame than invisibility. People know you, they say that's the blacksmith, with a mix of respect and mild disgust. You may lack charm, but you are undeniably the most distinctive presence in town. The smell of fire means you've been working. The scent of iron means you've been crafting, and the odor of sweat-soaked leather mixed with soot and regret means you're a professional. This life wasn't your choice. The forge chose you. Passed down through your father's rough hands and ironclad expectations, like a rusty heirloom, you now do the same. Your son doesn't play with wooden swords or run freely in the fields. Instead, he fetches coal, operates the bellows, and holds the tongs steady while sparks fall. You murmur, "Don't flinch." He's barely 7, already smelling of burnt metal and wet burlap. There's a flicker of guilt, but only a little. You're not harsh. You're preparing him. This is the trade, the means of survival. He watches you swing the hammer, eyes wide with a mix of awe and fear. That look is familiar. It's the same one you once gave your father, who seemed like an immovable mountain. Now you realize he was not stone, but exhaustion and duty. You teach him everything, how to judge heat by color, to tap lightly instead of striking hard, how to listen to the metal's voice. Sometimes you shout, more from habit than anger, "Hold it right. That's too cold. Don't cry, it's only a burn." You try to soften the harshness with stories by the fire, with dried fruit when you can afford it. But tenderness fades quickly in the forge. There's always too much work. Soon, his hands will resemble yours. His back will ache before his voice cracks. He'll learn to sleep through ringing ears and rise before dawn without being told. He'll outgrow his shirts, but never the burn. Marks, When your body finally gives out, knees, shoulders, lungs, you know he'll carry the hammer you can no longer lift. Some might call this cycle unfair, but it's how things have always been, a lineage forged from soot, steel, and survival. You're not just passing down a trade, you're handing down a legacy, a fire that never cools. You raise your son to carry on, not from cruelty, but because the flame must be kept alive. You've spent a lifetime too close to fire, swinging iron and breathing little clean air. It wasn't a matter of if your body would fail, but when. Now, it's happening. Your knees creak like old wooden doors in a storm. Your back refuses to straighten. Fingers, once strong enough to bend steel, now tremble with lifting a cup. The forge still roars, but your arms no longer answer. The hammer feels heavier every day, as if it senses the moment it will be released. You don't leave with fanfare or a heroic end, just a gradual slowing. Tasks pass to your son. You sit more, watch more. He asks questions you struggle to answer. Villagers begin turning to him. They still nod respectfully at you, but they speak. With your son, the one with calloused hands, fresh burns, and the aches of the craft now on his shoulders. Quietly, you feel pride. You were never wealthy, no lands, books, or fine clothes, but you were necessary. You kept swords sharp, wheels turning, gates swinging, and farms working. The world rarely thanked you, but it moved because of you. You likely won't reach 50. Most blacksmiths don't. The damage accumulates. Lungs darkened by smoke, joints ground down like iron on stone, heart worn thin by constant heat and effort. But when you're gone, your work remains. Nails in church doors, blades at noble hips, horses shod and ready. You leave no grand titles, only tools, scars, and a son with a hammer, and in this world that is enough. They may bury you in a simple grave. No gold, no statue. Just a name carved in wood and a forge that still burns in memory. Every clang echoing through the village after you're gone is the sound of your work continuing. You were never a knight riding into battle with banners flying or polished armor gleaming in the sun, but you made that armor. You didn't farm the land, but you forged the plows that carved it. You didn't bake bread, but you built the oven. Doors. You didn't construct castles, but every nail, hinge, and brace was shaped by your fire. As a blacksmith in the medieval world, you meant everything. While nobles argued and kings exchanged crowns, you stood at your forge day after day, shaping the world piece by piece. 1,000 small things, rivets, hooks, braces, buckles, none drawing crowds, but all holding the world together. Your life was loud with labor, but your legacy is quiet. No songs were sung of your hammer, no bard praised your tongs, yet every wheel that turns, every unbroken sword, every barn door swinging instead of falling, that was your work. People passed your forge, saw smoke, smelled sweat and soot, and assumed that was all. But inside was a symphony of heat and steel, of creation and endurance. You didn't just forge iron, you forged civilization, one horseshoe, one blade, one nail at a time. Now, long after your hands have stilled, the fire continues. Your son lifts your hammer. Your grandson learns the heat. Your name may fade, but the tools you crafted will endure, passed from hand to hand, generation to generation. You were never crowned, honored, or celebrated. But without you, nothing moved. No carts rolled, no armies marched, no homes stood secure. You were the foundation beneath history's pages, the ember glowing beneath tales of kings. And that matters more than any spoken word. In a world built from wood, stone, and willpower, you were the fire, the silent spark that transformed raw ore into progress. You weren't merely part of the world, you kept it turning. Long before alchemy was linked to secret European labs and mystics whispering over bubbling flasks, it was something far older and more sacred. Its true origin lies not in medieval Europe, but in the radiant heat of ancient Egypt, where transformation was not a scientific trick, but a divine principle woven into every aspect of life and death. The ancient Egyptians had a word for this. Chemia, from chem, meaning black, land. It referred to the fertile soil left by the Nile's floods, but it was more than geography. It held deep spiritual significance. Black symbolized potential, richness, raw matter waiting to be changed. Thus, Egypt became a metaphor for nature's power to transform. This is where the word alchemy or alchemia was born. Yet for Egyptians, alchemy was not just about turning metals into gold. That came later. It was everywhere, in mummification rituals, preserving and preparing bodies for eternity, in temples where priests blended oils, herbs and minerals into sacred elixirs, in the stars, the soil, even baking bread and brewing beer. Transformation was the language of the gods. Egyptian alchemy was never just physical, it was spiritual. To change something outwardly, one first had to understand it inwardly. This idea echoed through centuries, influencing alchemical texts across cultures. Some legends say these early Egyptian alchemists were guided by Thoth, the god of wisdom, magic, and the moon. According to myth, Thoth revealed secrets of creation, transformation, and the soul's journey beyond death, inscribed on the mystical emerald tablet. Before we delve into that, it's important to note, alchemy began not as a quest for gold, but as a sacred science of life. Egypt was the fire that ignited all others, and everything that followed, from Persia to Paris, traced roots back to this ancient, fertile land. If Egypt was alchemy's birthplace, then Thoth was its divine midwife. Not merely a god, he represented knowledge, magic, writing, time, and universal law. With an ibis's head and a moon disk above, Thoth symbolized balance. In a world driven by order and transformation, he was the sacred scribe of hidden truths. Egyptians believed he authored thousands of books filled with divine wisdom, most hidden from mortal eyes. Yet one piece of his knowledge changed history: the Emerald Tablet. Whispers of the Emerald Tablet have echoed through time like a cryptic riddle, carved into civilization's bones, said to be inscribed on green crystal or emerald. It is a brief, poetic text, only a dozen lines, but those lines hold the ultimate key to transforming matter, spirit, and reality. It opens with a phrase that has puzzled thinkers for centuries. That which is above is like that which is below, and that which is below is like that which is above. This principle of correspondence suggests the microcosm and macrocosm mirror each other. What happens in the He? The tablet speaks of a single source of all creation, rising from the earth and descending from the sky, carrying the power of everything. Many see this as the philosopher's stone, others as the soul, ether, or even consciousness itself. But the greatest mystery wasn't just the tablet's message, it was who could truly understand it. One had to be more than a scholar, one had to be a seeker. This sacred riddle, gifted by Thoth, survived Egypt's fall, passed like a torch across borders and ages, first to Persia, then further. As Egypt's golden age waned, alchemy didn't vanish. It migrated, traveling trade routes carried by scribes, mystics, and conquerors. It entered Persia, where it evolved, blending spiritual fire with deep philosophy. Persian alchemy was shaped by Zoroastrianism, one of the world's oldest monotheistic faiths. Central to it was duality, the ongoing struggle between light and darkness, truth and falsehood, purity and corruption. Fire, the purest element in Zoroastrian belief, was sacred. It burned in temples as divine wisdom's symbol, lighting the crucibles of early Persian alchemists. Meanwhile, a Greek-Egyptian mystic named Zosimos of Panopolis gave alchemy its first clear voice, a voice still resonant today. Living in Roman, Egypt around the 3rd or 4th century CE, Zosimos was no ordinary thinker. His writings combined technical descriptions of furnaces, stills, and elixirs with visionary journeys. In his most famous dream, he sees himself dismembered, burned, and transformed in an alchemical furnace. Far from terrifying, this vision is divine, a symbolic death of the self, a purification of the soul. Zosimos believed alchemy was more than changing metals. The alchemist must be transformed as well, just as base metals must break down before. Becoming gold, the alchemist must suffer, purify, and transcend. In his words, alchemy was a mystery of spirit and matter. He introduced spiritual alchemy, a concept far ahead of his time. His writings are rich with strange symbols. Lions devouring. At the center of this alchemical revival stood a man whose name would become legendary, Jabir ibn Hayyan, known in the West as Geber. More than just a chemist or philosopher, Jabir represented a unique blend of both disciplines. Often called the father of chemistry, his contributions to alchemy were so significant that they laid the groundwork for modern science itself. Working in the courts of the Abbasid Caliphate in the 8th century, Jabir treated alchemy not as mystical art, but as a systematic and testable practice. He introduced laboratory techniques still familiar today, including distillation, crystallization, and sublimation. He developed new instruments, refined acids, and authored over 100 texts, combining philosophical ideas with chemical experimentation. Despite these scientific advances, Jabir maintained the spiritual essence of alchemy. He believed the universe was made up of 4 elements: earth, air, fire, and water, each imbued with spiritual qualities. His system incorporated numerology, astrology, and symbolism, viewing every physical transformation as a reflection of a deeper spiritual change. Jabir also introduced the concept of balance, or mizan, as central to alchemy. Just as the body must maintain equilibrium to stay healthy, metals had to achieve balance to reach perfection. Gold was not simply a metal, but matter in ideal harmony, and if balance could be attained, even the most common metals could be transformed. Jabir's influence extended beyond the Islamic world. Over time, his works were translated into Latin and spread across medieval Europe, inspiring Western alchemists who often unknowingly built on his insights. Through Jabir ibn Hayyan, alchemy took a critical step forward. It evolved from sacred symbolism into a methodical system, a proto-science, while still serving as a map for both material and spiritual transformation. While the Islamic world preserved and expanded ancient knowledge, Europe remained largely mired in superstition and rigid spirituality. However, knowledge tends to travel, especially when it is too powerful to be contained. Gradually, alchemy moved westward, crossing cultural and linguistic barriers. The intellectual exchanges in places like Alexandria and later Toledo and Córdoba in Islamic Spain fostered rare collaborations between Christian, Jewish, and Muslim scholars. These translators labored over Arabic manuscripts, reviving the works of Jabir, Zosimos, and Aristotle, bringing forgotten ideas back into European thought. By the 12th century, Europe hungered for knowledge. The rediscovery of these ancient texts on alchemy sparked a cultural explosion. What arrived was not merely practical chemistry, but alchemy in its entirety, a blend of spirit, matter, and meaning. Monasteries hid unusual manuscripts behind religious texts, and monks experimented with metals not only to purify them, but to purify their own souls. In secret studies and candlelit chambers, European minds fixated on one compelling idea: transmutation, the possibility that base metals could become gold, and the human soul could undergo a similar transformation. Among the most influential works to reach Europe was the Turba Philosophorum, or Assembly of the Philosophers, a cryptic dialogue among ancient sages on nature's secrets. Then came the Picatrix, an extensive Arabic grimoire rich in astrological and alchemical symbolism. These texts did more than share recipes. They conveyed entire worldviews that planted seeds in curious minds. Latin translations circulated discreetly, often disguised as religious or philosophical treatises to avoid accusations of heresy. Alchemy posed a challenge to the established order. If lead could turn into gold, then might a commoner rise to nobility? Could humans become divine? The Church viewed alchemy with suspicion, yet its allure was undeniable. It offered a secret path to perfection, independent of dogma or official authority. By the late Middle Ages, Europe had taken up the alchemical torch. The flame that once burned in Egypt, Persia, and Baghdad now flickered within castles, monasteries, and secret societies. Alchemy had crossed a critical threshold and was evolving once more. It had become almost mythic, no longer merely an intellectual pursuit, but a sacred quest. Central to this quest was a singular object, idea, and obsession: the philosopher's stone. The philosopher's stone was far more than a chemical substance. Wrapped in allegory, symbolism, and riddles, it was said to have the power to transform base metals into gold and grant immortality through the elusive elixir of life. To those truly versed in alchemy, the stone was spiritual rather than physical. It bore many names: lapis philosophorum, the red stone, the powder of projection. Some believed it was a literal red crystal, others saw it as a metaphor for spiritual awakening. All agreed it represented ultimate transformation. Alchemists understood the universe as a living organism, striving for perfection. Metals, too, were alive, developing slowly within the earth. Lead was simply immature gold. Likewise, humans could evolve toward balance. The philosopher's stone was the catalyst for this evolution. European alchemists such as Albertus Magnus, Roger Bacon, and Paracelsus dedicated their lives to studying nature's processes in pursuit of this truth. They built furnaces, observed astrology, gathered rare minerals, and composed cryptic texts filled with serpents, dragons, and kings, symbols for stages of inner and outer transformation. The creation of the stone followed a path called the magnum, opus, or great work. It began with nigredo, blackening, symbolizing death, decay, and the ego's breakdown. Then albedo, whitening, representing purification, citrinitas, yellowing, the illumination, and finally rubedo, reddening, signifying rebirth and emergence of the stone. Why encode this process in metaphor? Because alchemists believed true transformation was not for the unprepared. The stone would reveal itself only to those ready both intellectually and spiritually. The search for it was a search for perfection, and though many sought gold, the wisest knew that the soul was the true prize. As alchemy took root in medieval Europe, it gradually moved into secrecy. What was once open dialogue in temples and courts became hidden practice. Religious scrutiny, political pressures, and alchemy's complex symbolism all contributed. The Church, wielding immense power, saw alchemy as both promising and dangerous. Some Christian mystics embraced it, equating metal transmutation with Christ's resurrection, while others condemned it, viewing human attempts to alter nature or achieve spiritual ascent without divine grace as heretical. To avoid persecution, alchemists hid their knowledge in allegory and secret symbols. This marked the beginning of alchemy's underground era, its teachings passed in coded manuscripts and secret societies known only to initiates. The Rosicrucians, a mysterious brotherhood that emerged in the 17th century, claimed to possess ancient alchemical wisdom from Egypt and Arabia. Their writings spoke of spiritual enlightenment, divine harmony, and hidden sciences. Though their existence was never verified, their ideas inspired countless seekers, Similarly, the Freemasons, tracing their origins to medieval stonemasons, incorporated rituals deeply aligned with alchemical themes of purification, transformation, and inner light. Whether or not they practiced alchemy literally, their symbolic language echoed its goals, the construction of the perfect self. Alchemy also survived in books of secrets, such as the Mutus Liber, which contained no words, only symbolic images communicating the great work silently. Other texts were written in green language, a coded form of wordplay and double meanings concealing deeper truths. The alchemist's life became one of duality. Outwardly a scholar, physician, or monk, inwardly a revolutionary pursuing the divine through fire, metal, spirit, and stone. The secrecy that threatened alchemy also preserved it, like embers smouldering beneath ash, passed quietly from master to apprentice across generations. In these hidden corners, alchemy continued to grow, not just as a proto-science, but as a living philosophy. Yet it would soon face its greatest challenge, the rise of modern chemistry. By the 17th and 18th centuries, a quiet revolution was underway. The Age of Enlightenment rejected the mysticism and metaphor that once cloaked alchemical thought. In their place came empiricism, logic, and reproducible results. Alchemy's successor was chemistry. This change was gradual. Many early chemists began as alchemists who shifted focus. The goal moved from spiritual perfection and soul transformation to measurable, repeatable changes. Dragons and black suns gave way to beakers, balances, and precise records. A major turning point came with Robert Boyle, often called the father of modern chemistry. In his 1661 work, The Skeptical Chemist, Boyle argued that matter was composed of atoms and that chemical reactions could be explained without mystical forces. While respecting alchemy's transformative potential, Boyle insisted it be framed by natural laws, not allegory. Soon after, Antoine Lavoisier discovered oxygen's role in combustion and disproved the classical four-element theory of earth: air, fire, and water. Laboratories became secular centers of knowledge. Alchemy, with its secret codes and sacred metaphors, was seen as obsolete, a curiosity of the past. Yet chemistry owed much to alchemy. Its tools, methods, and spirit of inquiry all emerged from that ancient craft. Alchemy had paved the way for chemistry to advance. As the industrial age demanded practical results, governments funded scientific research, and the philosopher's stone gave way to the microscope, the Bunsen burner, and other instruments. What was once sacred became material. Still, alchemy never fully disappeared. In quiet places and thoughtful minds, it lived on, not as science but as a symbol of transformation, unity, and the eternal dance between matter and spirit. While the world turned to chemistry for answers, some continued to seek meaning in alchemy because some fires never extinguish. They simply burn beneath the surface. Though alchemy faded from scientific halls, it transformed rather than died. What began in Egyptian tombs was refined in Persian fire temples and encoded in medieval European manuscripts did not vanish. Instead, it evolved, branching into chemistry, psychology, medicine, and modern spirituality. In the 20th century, a new kind of alchemist emerged, not with furnaces, but with notebooks and visionary ideas. Swiss psychologist Carl Jung rediscovered alchemy's hidden wisdom and revived it. He argued that ancient alchemists were not merely transforming metals, they were unknowingly mapping the human psyche. Jung saw nigredo, blackening, as depression, albedo whitening as insight, and rubedo reddening as the birth of an integrated self. The philosopher's stone, he said, symbolized individuation, the process of becoming whole. Ultimately, alchemy was always about more than gold. Today, its influence appears everywhere, from self-help teachings to psychological frameworks, carrying forward its timeless message of transformation. In stories of heroes who descend into darkness only to return renewed, our very language reflects this journey. Words like refine, distill, and purify echo the path of the alchemist. Even in modern science, the spirit of alchemy persists. Chemists still transmute elements in nuclear reactors, while physicists discuss dark matter and unified fields with the same awe that alchemists once reserved for ether and quintessence. The quest to discover the universe's fundamental building blocks continues, though the vocabulary has evolved. Yet perhaps alchemy's true legacy is its focus on wholeness. It never separated spirit from matter or science from mystery. It taught that changing the world begins with transforming oneself. Behind every experiment lies a profound question. Who are you becoming through this process? In a world dominated by speed, technology, and precise data, alchemy offers an ancient reminder. Real change requires changing yourself. So the alchemist's fire still burns, not in crucibles, but in hearts that wait, call, and transform. Because alchemy was never just a science, it was a mirror. At first glance, Cappadocia looks like a surreal painting, its surface scattered with towering stone chimneys and ridges shaped by wind and time. Visitors admire its strange beauty, but few realize the true marvel lies beneath their feet. Deep below this Turkish landscape stretches a hidden world, a vast labyrinth of underground cities spanning miles. These are no ordinary caves or shelters. These are entire subterranean towns complete with homes, chapels, wells, food storage, stables, and schools. Some descend as far as 18 stories, housing thousands. Most astonishingly, many of these cities remained unknown until the mid-20th century. In 1963, a man renovating his home in the town of Derinkuyu knocked down a basement wall, revealing not brick or dirt, but a tunnel. That tunnel led to another, then a chamber, then a spiral staircase. He had accidentally uncovered one of the largest underground cities in the world. It was as if a whole civilization had vanished beneath the earth, leaving only silence behind. Derinkuyu was just one among many. Over decades, archaeologists discovered hundreds of underground settlements in Cappadocia, at least 40 major ones linked by narrow corridors and secret escape routes. These were not random holes in the ground, but carefully planned and engineered. Complexes, massive stone doors could seal off passageways from inside. Ventilation shafts drew fresh air from above. Wells tapped underground water sources, ensuring supply even during sieges. Why build such elaborate cities underground? This question has puzzled historians for years. Were these shelters from invading armies, monastic refugees, secret spiritual sanctuaries, or something far older and stranger? Whatever the answer, one thing is clear. Cappadocia was more than a region. It was a refuge, a hidden world where thousands could disappear and live entirely beneath the surface. The deeper you explore these cities, the stranger their story becomes. To understand why they were built, we first must understand the land. Cappadocia is no ordinary terrain. Millions of years ago, volcanic eruptions covered central Turkey with thick ash layers. This ash hardened into soft, porous rock called tuff, a material light enough to carve with simple tools, yet strong enough to endure for centuries. Rain and wind sculpted this rock into fairy chimneys, conical towers, and mushroom-like spires, giving the landscape a dreamlike, otherworldly appearance. Ancient people didn't just admire this stone, they used it. Early settlers carved homes, chapels, and storage rooms directly from the rock, creating structures that stayed cool in scorching summers and warm in cold winters. Above ground, they carved churches into cliffs, but the true marvel was underground. The earliest caves were likely simple shelters for food or refuge from weather, but as threats increased and communities grew, these caves expanded. They evolved into interconnected rooms, multiple levels, and extensive networks. Digging deeper, entire societies moved beneath the earth, shaping tunnels with clear purpose. Tunnels connected homes to kitchens, stables to wells, rooms to chapels. Ventilation shafts brought fresh air from the surface through multiple floors. Vertical staircases were wide enough for people and livestock, yet narrow enough to defend. Some archaeologists believe parts of these underground cities date back to the Hittite Empire, or even earlier, around 2000 BCE. This land invited transformation, and the people of Cappadocia responded not with machines, but with patience, vision, and a focus on survival. The earth was more than a foundation. It was a shelter, a fortress, an inverted sky full of secrets. But what exactly were they hiding from? That question leads us deeper. Beneath the quiet town of Derinkuyu lies a city unknown until 1963, when a renovation revealed a dark tunnel stretching far beyond sight. That tunnel led to chambers, corridors, and spiral staircases descending 18 stories into the rock. Explorers discovered Derinkuyu, the largest and deepest underground city found in Cappadocia and possibly the world. What archaeologists uncovered was staggering. This was no temporary refuge. Derinkuyu was a living city carved from volcanic stone, containing homes, churches, communal kitchens, wine and oil presses, storage rooms, schools, and even a baptismal chamber. It could shelter around 20,000 people, along with their livestock and food supplies. Its design was remarkably precise. Massive rolling stone doors, shaped like millstones, could be pushed into place to seal tunnels during attacks. These doors were perfectly fitted, movable from the inside and nearly impossible to force from outside. Ventilation shafts snaked upward, delivering fresh air to the deepest levels. Wells tapped underground aquifers, supplying water without surfacing. The presence of a mission school suggests this city was about more than survival. It was about preserving community, education, and worship. Yet Derinkuyu remains mysterious. We don't know who first built it or why. Some believe early Christians expanded it to escape Roman or Arab persecution. Others argue its origins date back thousands of years to the Phrygians or Hittites. Why would people go to such lengths to disappear underground? Was it solely to avoid invaders, or was the threat something else entirely? Derinkuyu holds no inscriptions, no names, no clear timeline, just rooms, tunnels, and unanswered questions. Much remains unexplored because the deeper you go, the less it resembles a city and more something unknown. Building downward is far more difficult than building up. There is no sunlight, no scaffolding, no open sky, just solid rock and darkness. Yet the architects of Cappadocia's underground cities didn't merely dig. They designed with intelligence and care, creating spaces capable of sustaining thousands for months, perhaps years. These cities weren't chaotic burrows dug in panic, but carefully planned systems layered like an onion. Each level served a distinct purpose. Living quarters were near the surface for quick access when danger passed. Deeper levels housed kitchens, workshops, food storage, and livestock pens, placed to minimize fire risk or contamination. One of the most ingenious features was the ventilation system. Long vertical shafts carved through rock circulated fresh air through up to 18 underground levels. Some shafts were more than 50 meters deep, but positioned so air could reach the lowest chambers naturally. No fans, no electricity, just gravity and clever design. Water was essential. Cities were built around natural aquifers, with wells accessible from inside, to ensure residents never needed to surface, even during sieges. In some cities, well shafts were sealed off from above to prevent poisoning. Communication tunnels connected smaller chambers and linked nearby underground cities. During danger, messages and people could move unseen through these hidden passages. Defense was simple but effective. Narrow corridors forced invaders to approach one at a time. Trapdoors could be dropped quickly. Secret escape routes led to valleys or rivers. The massive rolling stone doors sealed passages in seconds. From outside, they looked like part of the wall. From inside, they were a final stronghold. Every element in these cities aimed for survival, not just for days or weeks, but long-term habitation under severe threat. This raises a question: what danger required such preparation? And was it ever truly gone? For centuries, scholars have pondered who the people of Cappadocia were hiding from. Central Anatolia was a crossroads of empires: Assyrians, Persians, Romans, Byzantines, each bringing conflict. Later, Arab raids, during early Islamic expansion, pushed Christian communities underground. Derinkuyu and Kaimakli likely served as sanctuaries during these violent times, allowing people to disappear into the rock and wait out danger. However, the scale, complexity and depth of these cities suggest they weren't built in haste. This was a long-term project demanding generations of digging, engineering and refinement. Some deepest chambers predate Christianity entirely. Who built the first tunnels? Some historians trace them back nearly 4,000 years to the Hittite Empire. Others believe the Phrygians expanded them. Beyond educated guesses, history falls silent. No inscriptions or carvings explain who vanished beneath the surface or why. This uncertainty fuels many theories. Some propose these cities were built to escape natural disasters, solar storms or warfare that scarred the skies and poisoned the land. More speculative ideas suggest these were shelters from beings not of this world. Mythic watchers, sky gods, or destroyers mentioned in ancient legends. Such theories gain traction when considering the city's secrecy: hidden air shafts, escape routes, and stone doors designed to vanish from view. It's as if their builders aimed to disappear entirely, hiding from a threat that hunted relentlessly. Though these ideas remain speculative, they highlight the central mystery. No matter how many layers archaeologists uncover, the core question remains: who were they hiding from? And did hiding truly keep them safe? Because sometimes the deeper you dig, the darker the truth becomes. Imagine living not just days but months, even years, entirely underground. No sunlight, no open skies, only stone walls, flickering oil lamps, and the constant hush of life beneath the earth. This was reality for thousands in Cappadocia during times of threat. But what was daily life like inside these vast underground cities? Despite the darkness, these spaces were alive with routine and carefully organized for communal survival. Families lived in multi-room quarters. Kitchens were placed on lower levels to keep smoke away from living areas and manage it more efficiently. Food in these underground cities was prepared in clay ovens. The smell of fresh bread likely mingled with the dampness of stone and the presence of livestock. Churches and chapels were carved into the rock, marked by crosses and altars, some adorned with intricate frescoes. People didn't just endure. Here, they prayed, worshipped, and held sacred rituals. There were communal meeting areas, classrooms for children, and long passageways filled with the echoes of footsteps and voices. Oil lamps lit the halls, with dozens placed throughout to provide light. Smoke was drawn out through cleverly engineered shafts that also served as ventilation. But life underground wasn't simple. Fresh air was scarce, darkness constant, and when silence came, it was total. Water came from deep wells connected to underground aquifers. Grain was kept in sealed chambers to protect it from rot. Wine presses and olive oil vats carved directly into stone suggest that even underground, daily life had taste, tradition, and ceremony. These cities weren't just emergency shelters. They were long-term habitats, thoughtfully constructed. Livestock like goats, sheep, and chickens were kept in pens near the entrances, making them easier to manage and ventilate. Animals provided not just food, but also warmth. The architecture reflected a deep understanding of human psychology. Rooms were arranged to ensure family privacy while maintaining communal areas that fostered connection. Life beneath the earth wasn't merely about survival, it was about preserving identity, culture, and continuity. It's a sobering thought. While chaos and war unfolded above, entire societies lived on below, hidden in silence. People married, raised children, and grieved their losses, all within stone chambers lit by fire. Living underground didn't mean living in fear, it meant living deliberately. Cappadocia's underground cities weren't isolated hideouts. They were part of an extensive, connected system beneath the volcanic terrain, an entire civilization carved into the rock. Tunnels, passageways and chambers linked places like Derinkuyu, Kemakli and Özkonak. These were likely not independent cities, but components of a unified underground society. Some of these tunnels stretch for kilometers beneath the landscape, as narrow and winding as veins under skin, barely wider than a person's shoulders. They were likely used for secret travel, the transport of goods, or as escape routes. Derinkuyu and Kaimakli, two of the largest known cities, are thought to be connected by a tunnel nearly 9 kilometers long. This isn't just remarkable engineering. It's evidence of coordination and planning rarely seen in ancient structures. If this theory holds, it implies that multiple cities could support one another in times of siege, forming a kind of underground federation. The tunnels weren't just functional, they were defensive. Designed with choke points, blind turns, and narrow entrances, they forced intruders to enter one by one, making it easier to ambush them. Many even had trapdoors or stone plugs that could be rolled into place to block attackers. Despite decades of study, much of the system remains unknown. New tunnels and chambers continue to be discovered. In 2014, a vast underground complex was unearthed beneath Nevşehir, potentially even larger than Derinkuyu. Archaeologists believe it may include dozens of levels, aqueducts, sanctuaries, and countless tunnels yet to be explored. What was the true purpose of this underground world? Were the tunnels just escape routes, or were they the infrastructure of a society built to live entirely out of sight? The more we uncover, the clearer it becomes that Cappadocia's underground isn't a mere collection of carved homes. It's a network, intentionally designed and hidden, maintained for generations. Entire cities may still lie buried, not lost to time, but hidden on purpose, because in Cappadocia the earth doesn't just conceal, it protects. Even now, after decades of excavation, many mysteries remain. The stone walls are quiet, but the questions grow louder. How were these cities built? When and why? Mainstream archaeology attributes their growth to the Byzantine era, when Christians fled from invaders. But some experts suggest that parts of the cities could be far older, perhaps 4,000 years or more. If that's the case, what danger existed so long ago that people felt compelled to build underground? This question has invited a range of theories. Some propose that the cities were shelters from natural disasters, floods, volcanic winters, solar flares, or long environmental crises. Their design, sealed, hidden, and self-reliant, could be seen as preparation for long-term survival. Others lean toward cosmic explanations. Ancient astronaut theorists speculate that early people built these sanctuaries to escape entities they described as gods, beings who descended from the sky and ruled by fear. Could the underground cities have served as a barrier against something? Not of this world. Local folklore speaks of giants roaming the surface, forcing people underground. Other stories mention fire from the sky and enemies with burning eyes. These may sound metaphorical or distorted by time, but they suggest fears powerful enough to reshape entire civilizations. Some interpretations are more symbolic. In ancient traditions, descending into the earth often represented spiritual rebirth, or a journey into the underworld. Were these cities ritual spaces, sites of transformation, or perhaps they weren't abandoned? They were hidden, intentionally forgotten. No single theory fully accounts for their scale, age, or sophistication. That's perhaps what's most disconcerting. These places don't quite fit into our existing historical models. Maybe that's the point. Some parts of history weren't meant to be easily understood. Today, visitors to Cappadocia stroll through surreal landscapes, wind-shaped valleys, glowing rock formations, and fairy chimneys bathed in sunset light. Hot air balloons drift peacefully overhead, but below their feet, the ground is hollow. Beneath the beauty lies a world carved in darkness, one that seems to be holding its breath. Tourists descend narrow stairwells, pass through arched tunnels, and stand in ancient rooms where people once waited quietly for the world above to calm. Yet only a small portion of this underground world is open. Some chambers remain sealed, some tunnels vanish into shadow, and some doorways appear to lead nowhere, or so it seems. These aren't just ruins, they're messages, not written in words but etched in stone. We don't know the names of the people who built them. We don't know their exact stories, but we do know this: they were planners, builders, visionaries. They created something that could last through centuries of silence, something that may have never been intended to be rediscovered. Cappadocia reminds us that history isn't always found on the surface. Sometimes its most powerful truths are buried on purpose, hidden from invaders, hidden from the curious, hidden perhaps even from time. And what remains? Mystery. Mystery in the perfectly carved stone doors, in the air shafts that still catch the wind, in the miles of tunnels still untouched and dark. Maybe the real purpose of Cappadocia's underground cities will never be known. Maybe it was never meant to be. But when you walk through those shadowed corridors, with the weight of rock overhead and silence all around, you feel something ancient, something still alive. It's not fear, it's endurance, because when the world above descended into chaos, the people of Cappadocia chose to survive, together in the dark. And the earth, it seems, has kept their secret. In ancient cultures fixated on eternity, sleep was more than rest, it was preparation for death. Dreams were thought to be messages from the beyond, a bridge between the living and the spiritual world. Egyptian texts reveal that dreams were seen as both intensely personal and profoundly prophetic. Like the Sumerians, the Egyptians categorized dreams into two types: true dreams, sent by deities or spirits with a purpose to heal, warn, or guide, and false dreams, which stemmed from physical imbalances or misleading emotions. Temples, devoted to gods such as Serapis and Thoth, practiced what was known as dream incubation. Worshippers would sleep within temple walls, seeking visions. These dreams were often recorded, interpreted by temple priests, and sometimes even inscribed in stone. Occasionally, dreams were more than symbolic. They were believed to bring about actual healing. One of the most compelling relics of this belief system is the Ramesside Dream Book, dating to around 1300 BCE. This papyrus scroll acts as a dream dictionary, listing over 100 dreams alongside their interpretations. For instance, dreaming of eating crocodile meat meant triumph over one's enemies, while drinking warm beer was a bad omen, signifying grief. These meanings were not taken lightly. Pharaohs, military leaders, and religious officials all consulted dream interpreters, who acted as channels between the divine and the human. Egyptian belief also connected dreams to the ka, or soul. During sleep, the ka was thought to travel to other dimensions, returning with what it saw as dreams, visions of gods, ancestors, or even hostile spirits. Protective spells were often used to ward off such malevolent forces. Tombs, too, included Dreams. Kings claimed divine endorsement through nocturnal encounters, using these visions to affirm their right to rule. In Egypt, dreams weren't illusions, they were revelations. To dream was to briefly enter eternity. In ancient Greece, dreams existed at the intersection of medicine, myth, and early philosophy. Greeks considered dreams to be cosmic communications, delivered by gods, heroes, or even underworld forces. But they also began asking deeper questions. Why do we dream? This curiosity laid the groundwork for psychological inquiry. The most revered site for dream revelation in Greece was the Asclepion, a healing temple dedicated to Asclepius, the god of medicine. Pilgrims from across the Mediterranean traveled to these sanctuaries to engage in a process known as incubation. They would purify themselves, bathing, fasting, praying, and sometimes sacrificing before sleeping in hopes of receiving a divine message. It was believed Asclepius himself might appear in dreams to diagnose illness, suggest treatments, or even perform miraculous surgeries. Temple priests known as therapeuti interpreted these dreams and offered treatments based on their content. This fusion of healing and spiritual insight was highly respected. Temple walls were filled with inscriptions thanking the gods for miraculous cures. But Greek dreams weren't limited to healing. They played crucial roles in literature, politics, and prophecy. In Homer's Iliad, Zeus sends a deceptive dream to influence Agamemnon. In the Odyssey, Penelope describes two gates of dreams, one of horn for truths, one of ivory for falsehoods. Dream interpretation evolved into a respected field. Philosophers like Aristotle and Heraclitus debated whether dreams were divine or products of the soul. The dream manual Oneirocritica by Artemidorus of Daldis systematized the practice, providing interpretations based on profession, gender, and symbolism. His work became a standard reference for centuries. To the Greeks, the soul was thought to partially detach during sleep, entering a liminal state to glimpse higher truths. Dreams were never random. They were portals to the divine. Across ancient civilizations, dreams weren't merely inner reflections, they were prophecies. Many cultures believed that dreaming allowed the sleeper to access the future, catching glimpses of fate before it unfolded. This made dreams both powerful and dangerous. In Mesopotamia, dreams involving celestial disturbances, such as eclipses or rivers turning to blood, were interpreted as signs of war or catastrophe. Priests kept detailed logs of such dreams, analyzing them for patterns that might predict the empire's destiny. These weren't just archived, they were actively consulted during crises. Egyptians saw dreams as sacred warnings. Pharaoh Thutmose IV famously claimed his kingship was foretold in a dream, where the Sphinx promised him the throne if he cleared sand from its base. Whether literal or political mythology, this dream solidified his legitimacy. In Greece, dreams influenced war and governance. Before making major decisions, leaders sought guidance through dreams or consulted oracles, many of whom incorporated dreaming into their rituals. Alexander the Great reportedly dreamt of Serapis before invading Persia and took it as divine. Approval, prophetic dreams weren't reserved for rulers. Common people believed dreams could predict life events, marriage, illness, childbirth, or death. Artemidorus's Oneirocritica listed countless such examples. Losing teeth meant the death of a family member. Flying signaled a shift in fortune. For ordinary people, prophetic dreams offered a window into the divine and a sense of control over life's uncertainties. But they also inspired fear. Misreading a dream, or missing one, could mean tragedy. In a world where gods whispered in the night, sleep was a sacred dialogue with fate. Healing in ancient times wasn't confined to herbs or surgery, it was often sought through dreams. Sacred dream temples spanned many civilizations. These were not merely hospitals, but spiritual centers where divine guidance was part of the cure. The best known were the Asclepians in Greece, devoted to Asclepius, but similar practices were found. In Egypt and Mesopotamia, people came not only to treat illness, but to seek deeper healing through divine contact. The process of dream healing began with incubation, fasting, bathing, or offering sacrifices before sleeping in a designated sacred space, the goal to invite a vision. In dreams, gods or sacred animals like snakes, symbolizing Asclepius, might appear, offering cures or performing dream surgeries. Upon waking, trained priests interpreted the visions and prescribed actions, perhaps drinking a potion, taking a symbolic journey, or giving thanks through sacrifice. In some cases, the dream itself was the remedy. These temples were not obscure. They drew crowds. Their walls bear testimonies of recovered sight, healed fevers, and lifted pain. Whether the effects were physical, psychological, or spiritual, the belief in dream healing was transformative. Egyptians sought such experiences in the temples of Serapis or Imhotep. In Mesopotamia, worshippers visited Gula's sanctuaries for dream-based healing rituals. Despite cultural differences, they shared one conviction. The body and soul were inseparable, and the soul spoke clearest in dreams. In these hallowed places, sleep wasn't passive, it was medicine. Dreams weren't just sources of guidance or healing, they were a medium through which the dead could speak. Many ancient civilizations believed that during dreams, the boundary between life and death weakened, allowing contact with departed loved ones. In Egypt, where the afterlife was central to belief, dreams were considered legitimate encounters with the dead. The ka, or soul, was believed to travel during sleep and might visit deceased relatives or spiritual realms. A dream featuring a dead family member might indicate dissatisfaction, a need for offerings, or a simple message. Egyptians often left letters to the dead in tombs, hoping for a dream in response. In Mesopotamia, these encounters were approached with both reverence and caution. The dead were thought to retain power, and a dream visitation could imply an unresolved ritual or broken promise. Such dreams often prompted rituals to restore balance. Greeks took similar views. In Homer's Odyssey, Odysseus descends into the underworld and speaks with spirits, a vision echoing real dream beliefs. Heraclitus once wrote, "The waking have one world in common, but the sleeping turn aside each into a world of their own." For the ancients, that private world was where the dead could return. Beyond the Mediterranean, many cultures shared this understanding. Dreams were not poetic metaphors. They were messages from those no longer alive. To dream of the dead was to encounter a truth the waking world could not reach. To ancient peoples, dreams were never random. They were intricate puzzles filled with symbolism. Animals, events, and fantastical images held deeper meaning, coded language from higher powers. Understanding them required skill, insight, and often ritual. In Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Greece, professional dream interpreters served as spiritual analysts. These individuals maintained vast libraries of dream records and mastered symbolic languages. Their interpretations shaped public policy, medicine, and military action. Certain dream symbols appeared frequently, but held different meanings depending on context. A snake might represent danger or transformation. Fire could warn of destruction or signify purification. Flying could indicate the soul seeking freedom or a desire to escape reality. In Egypt, dream books catalogued these meanings. Drowning could warn of emotional turmoil. Blindness might signal a hidden truth or awakening. These interpretations weren't guesses. They reflected centuries of refined symbolic language. Artemidorus of Daldis, author of the Oneirocritica, emphasized the importance of context. A flood in a dream meant one thing to a farmer, something entirely different to a sailor. His was one of the earliest works to suggest that dream meaning is shaped by personal experience, a remarkably modern insight for the 2nd century. Dream interpretation was also intertwined with divination. Dreams were not just psychological, they were believed to be tools for seeing the future.